Hiya. So today I'm going to read to you The Boy in the Tower by Polly Her Yen. And as the title suggests, it's about a boy in a tower. It's in a tower block, a block of flats. It seems to be set in inner city, London, could be Wolverhampton, Birmingham, we don't know, nothing's actually said. But definitely inner city somewhere around these tower blocks. Strange things start to happen. So he likes to look out, he's on the 17th floor, he's up at the top, and he likes to look out at all the different things that are going on all around him, and then his world starts to change. All these strange things keep happening. And as you read through the book, you start to realise why certain things are happening, what's causing them, and then there's a little bit of drama. Does it cause a little bit of anxiety? What's going to happen? Is everyone okay? What's happening? But really good, keeps you engaged, keeps you wanting to guess what's going to happen next. Really good. So I'm just going to read you the first couple of chapters today, just to give you a bit of a taster of it. Okay. So chapter 1. When you wish that a Saturday was actually a Monday, you know that there's something seriously wrong. I look at the ceiling, at the spot of flaky paint and the stain that looks like a wobbly circle, and at the swaying, wispy spider's web, and I think of those cold, grey Mondays when I had to make myself get up for school. I'd have to force my legs off the mattress and I'd dress in a daze, unwilling to believe it was time to be upright again. I wish I could wake up another Monday like that. Those days are gone now that the Blutchers are here. When they first arrived, they came quietly and stealthily, as if they tiptoed silently into the world when we were all looking the other way. I guess I was one of the first people to see them. It's not something I'm proud of. When you know the kind of terrible destruction that just one clump of Blutchers can cause, you wouldn't have wanted to have been the first to see them either. I think the reason I knew about them before most other people was because I used to spend a lot of time sitting on my windowsill, looking down over the world. I could see everything from there. The miniature looking roads, the roofs of the buildings, the broccoli tops of the trees, and then, of course, the Blutchers themselves and the devastation that followed in their path. The view has changed so much now that sometimes I wonder if I just make up everything that came before. I have to make myself remember what I used to see. The shops and the bustle, the cars and the people, the red brick walls of the school, the grey patch of the playground. Some people say you shouldn't live in the past, but I can't stop myself from putting everything into two boxes in my head. Before and after. And it's much easier to think about the before things. Before, if there was a day when I didn't go into school because I was ill or because mum wasn't well, I used to sit on my windowsill and watch the other children coming out to play. Everyone would rush out of their tiny black back door so fast that I wasn't able to tell one little coloured ant from another. I could always recognise Gaia in the crowd there. She wore this bright pink coat that stood out a mile. I'd see her walking along the edge of the playground, never in the middle, never in a group. Always walking round and around by herself, walking in circles. But like I said, this was all before. I don't see any of the children anymore. I don't even know where Jaya is. It all began with the rain. "Don't forget your wellies today, Addy," Michael's mum would say to me each morning, "and your proper coat." Michael and his family lived in the flat next to ours, and we would often hear their voices through the walls. I came to be very familiar with the particular wail that Michael's sister made when she didn't get her own way. Michael's mum had started knocking for me before school. I now walked there with Michael and his little sister, with their mum shepherding us into the lift and then across the road. I liked them, but I preferred walking on my own, to be honest. If I was by myself, I could walk along the tops of the walls, trying not to fall off once, which I'd never managed. But Michael's mum didn't like me doing that. She tutted loudly the first time I tried to step up, so I didn't do it again. It would have been really hard to walk all the way along the wall that week because it had not stopped raining. Everywhere was slick with water. The puddles had grown so big that you had to jump and leap across them, and still they grew larger each day. Some of them formed little lakes that were so deep you had to walk all the way around the edge of them. They looked like they might swallow you up if you stepped into them. You couldn't even see the bottom. I liked the deep brown coloured puddles. I liked how you could walk right into them so that your feet would completely disappear. The first day the rain started falling, we spent most of our playtime doing just that, wading into the murky puddles that had filled any dip or crevice the water could fill into the playground. I remember it was really thundering down all morning, but it had turned into more of a drizzle by lunchtime. When they were eating lunch that day, Jaya noticed the teachers were all looking out of the windows and having hurried, harassed conversations with each other. "They're talking about wet play," she said. I looked up from the soggy pile of broccoli I'd been wondering if I could get away with not eating. I'd piled it up on the side of my plate so that it looked as small as possible. "Mr. Benton's saying that we need to have a run around," she continued. And I looked over to the group of teachers who were looking agitated with their hands on their hips. And Miss Faraway saying only some children have got coats on. That's not everyone's got coats with them today. Jaya scrunched her eyes up a bit so she could see what they were saying. She wasn't listening to them as much. She was more able to understand what they were saying by looking at how their lips moved. I think it all started because she couldn't hear very well when she was younger, and now, even though she's got something inside her ear to help her hear, she still does it all the time. The person has to be looking her way, of course, so she can see their lips moving. Sometimes it's not always completely right, but she usually gets the gist of what they're talking about. "Okay, we're going outside. Mr. Benton's getting really cross, saying that it's more important we get fresh air. Then, if we're wearing coats, we need to wear coats. It's outside play." Just a few minutes after that, they blew the whistle and told everyone that it was outside play and to wear your coat if you had one. Jaya smiled at me, just a small one. She wasn't showing off or anything, but we both liked how her lip reading meant we often knew what was going on before everyone else. We'd found out about all sorts of things that way. We discovered that Mr. Weaver and Miss Brown were living together after Jaya saw them bickering over what takeaway to order. Miss Brown wanted Chinese and Mr. Weaver wanted fish and chips. We even found out that Mr. Benton's first name was when Mr. Chelmsford, the head, was chatting to him in the corridor. It was something we would never have guessed in 100 years. Gordon. The playground was grey and cold, but full of shrieks and cries of everyone playing in the puddles. I looked around for Jaya. She'd come out before me while I was made to force the last of that broccoli into my mouth. In the end, it hadn't tasted of much at all. Just wetness. Green wetness. Jaya was by one of the larger puddles, and I ran over to join her. She was standing at the very edge of it, so I thought that she wasn't careful. She'd just fall right in. She wasn't wearing wellies either. I saw her dip the black rounded toe of her shoe into the water and then quickly bring it back out again. Then she did the same with the other foot. Just as she did that, at that very moment, she dipped her other foot in. A group of kids barged right past her. She had to take a few steps forward just to keep her balance, right into the middle of the puddle. I'd caught up her by this point. "Did you get wet, Jaya?" I asked. We both looked down at her shiny, soaked black shoes. Then we looked at each other. Her face broke into a smile first. Before we knew it, we were both laughing so hard that it didn't matter about anybody else in the whole world. You know, sometimes when you laugh and it just feels like that? We were laughing and people splashed us with puddle water and pushed us, but we didn't care. Miss Farrow is saying this, it's madness. Why did they let them out? I don't know. They're all soaked. Jaya and I had taken shelter underneath the old shed. Everyone was wet now. I don't mean just a little bit wet. I mean sodden. Wet right through. Jay was watching the adults on duty carefully so we could find out if they were going to send us back inside. Mrs. Brooks saying it's almost over now. Let's get everyone under the shed until she's looked away. Quickly, we moved the benches at the back just before Mrs. Brooks blew the whistle and everyone stampeded under the shed. It was the best place to stand, you see. You got a little bit more space there. After that day, we weren't allowed to go outside to play. Instead, we had to spend each playtime watching films on a screen in the hall. We'd all bundle to the floor in an uneasy fidgeting mass. The windows would steam up so we couldn't see the rain coming down, but we could still hear it. The teachers would turn the volume high so the film was blaring, but it couldn't block out the pitter-patter of the rain on the roof. I remember the thunder too. It would come in the afternoons mostly. The dark grey clouds would roll in from the distance and everyone would shriek when they heard the deep rumbles. We didn't get a lot of work done on those afternoons. I can't clearly remember how many days it went on for, but people were saying things like it's the wettest month on record and we're comparing it to like a monsoon in India and all things like that. All I can say is that it didn't ever stop. Even when you thought it wasn't raining anymore, if you looked out carefully of the window, you could still see drops in the puddles. They made little circles in the water. It got to the point where you never felt properly dry, even if you were tucked up in bed at night. The sound of water was all around us. Buildings sprang leaks, so not only did you hear the fall of the rain outside, but also the loud, steady drips landing in buckets and bowls and pans. Jaya liked the rain. She said it made her feel awake. Sometimes she'd point her face up towards the sky and let the raindrops land on her face and trickle down her cheeks like tears. Some of the other children couldn't understand what she was doing and would laugh at her, but I knew it was because she liked that feeling, just like how I love balancing on the top of walls. I think it was because of this, because we sort of understood things like that, that we were really good friends. I liked other kids well enough, but sometimes there just seemed to be an invisible barrier between us, which I didn't know how to make go away. Like with Michael, we walked to school together every day for weeks, swinging our bags together, walking side by side, but we never really spoke. I don't even know if I ever tried to start a conversation, but all I can really remember is the sound of our footsteps in a steady beat, in place of the sound of our voices. I don't know when I first properly met Jaya, but I can't remember when she wasn't there. I think our mums were friends first, and although they'd stopped seeing each other, I still saw Jaya every day at school. She didn't live in my block though. Her tower was across the road from mine. We both lived on the 17th floor. We liked that. Our blocks looked almost identical, but not quite. When I was younger, I thought that a giant, just like the one in Jack and the Beanstalk, could have come along and plucked both of our blocks from the ground and joined them together as neatly as two pieces of Lego. They just looked like they would fit together. But I don't believe in man-eating giants anymore, or beanstalks that grow up into the clouds and lead to strange, dangerous lands. I know now that there are things far more terrible, things that are far more real. And we'll leave it there, okay? So remember, The Boy in the Tower, okay? I definitely recommend it for a read, okay? Just reading those couple of bits there, I think it makes you think about what's happening. What is it that's dangerous? What is it that's real? What starts to happen? What is it with the rain? Lots of unanswered questions there, okay? Boy in the Tower.